Hey students, so this is our craft beer dataset, and now I'm going to show you how to do an associative analysis. So as you know from class, associative analysis can be done both on nominal or ordinal variables as well as on metric scaled variables, so interval or ratio scaled variables. Now the specific analysis we do will depend on the measurement level of the variables we're working with. So if we use a nominal or an ordinal variable, for the associative analysis, what we do is Crosstab Chi2. So I will show you in this video how to perform a Crosstab Chi2 analysis on two nominal or ordinal variables. In the next video, I will show you a different type of associative analysis, namely correlation analysis. So if we click on our dataset, this is the craft beer dataset that we've been using all along. You find the associative analysis under Analyze. So you click Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, and then cross-tabulation, so crosstabs. This is where you find your Crosstab Chi2. If you click on it, this window will open up, and it allows you to select the variables you want for rows versus columns. So let's say, for example, we want to know if there is a relationship between gender. So let's click in gender already. And how much do people spend weekly on craft beer. So let's click that one in, which you can see is an ordinal variable. We use that in the columns. So what we're going to do now is see whether there's a relationship between gender and the estimated weekly spending on craft beer. What we do next is we click Statistics, and under Statistics we click Chi2. This is incredibly important because if we don't click Chi2, the output is not going to show us a p-value, so it's not going to show us a significant value. So we need the Chi2 to always go hand in hand with the crosstabs, so that's why we check the box Chi2. We hit Continue, and then next we can go to Cells, and under Cells we can ask SPSS to report either the row or the column percentages or the total percentages and so on. So that is up to you. You can of course also play around with it and one time do row percentages, the other time do column percentages, just to see what it looks like and just to see if you find one or the other more easy to interpret. So let's go for row percentages now and hit Continue. All the rest can just remain as is by default. Double check to make sure you have two variables that are either nominal or ordinal. That's the case, so we can hit OK. This is what our output shows us. So in our output we have, let me move this to the side a little bit and make it a little bit larger. We have a couple output tables. So we first of all have a table that we won't use. It shows you like your sample size and other information, missings and so on. So it's basically just a summary. The next table you see is your actual cross-tabulations table. So we're going to look at that in a second. But first thing we need to do is look at our chi-square test to know if our test was even significant to begin with. So we look at the Pearson chi-square value, and we find that the significance two-sided or two-tailed is 0.047. So this is right below the cutoff of 0.05. It's just below. So that means that we did find a significant relationship between the variables we analyzed, so gender and estimated weekly spending on craft beer. So if we want to look now what the significant relationship actually looks like in detail, we can look at the table above, this one. We see that for the males, of all the males, because it will add up to 100%, you see of all the males, 21% spends less than $5 or $5 itself on craft beer per week. 21%, or 21.2 actually, spends somewhere between $6 to $10. 24.7% of males spend somewhere between $11 to $20 per week on craft beer, and so on. So you can see that these numbers will add up to 100%. Now, of all females, we see that there's a stronger majority actually spending only $5 or less on craft beer. The other numbers here are similar, except that what you can see here is that for males, the spending of it, or their budget for craft beer is a bit more spread out and a bit more tailed towards the right. So guys would spend a little more on craft beer versus women tend to be a little more concentrated on the lower end. So the majority of women actually doesn't spend much at all on craft beer. There's only very few percentages of women, and actually no women at all, who would spend more than $81 or more than $100 on craft beer per week. So this is an interesting finding. Now, of course, for gender, we not only had male and female, we also had other or refuse, but we have very low frequency. So you see the count is the actual frequency. We have very few people actually, we in total only had 4 people selecting other or refuse. So these results are not too reliable. Sample size is very small. So the most striking result that we find here in this crosstab is that guys tend to spend a little more on craft beer here than women do. So overall we can say that we did find a significant relationship between gender and estimated weekly spending on craft beer. Now we could repeat this analysis for different variables just so you get the hang of it. So let's take a quick look. Let's now look at the potential relationship, not between gender and spending, but between age and spending. So maybe different age groups would spend more or less on craft beer. Let's take a look. We go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, and then Crosstabs. And when you click Crosstabs again, you remove the variable you want to replace, and let's do age instead. So now we have 2 ordinal variables in here, all fine. And again, I mean, statistics is still clicked, so that didn't change. And then cells, we can leave it at row. If we want to switch the column, that would be fine too. Let's maybe do that. Just for the fun of it. And actually what we can do as well, if we want, is we could switch these. We could make one column and the other one row. That really wouldn't matter that much. It's just gonna change the way your table looks. Like as you can see here in the background, in the output of our previous analysis, we had a very stretched out wide table because we chose to set it up that way. So we can change that, of course, here. Cool. That's it. Let's hit OK. And here is our new analysis. So our output. So again, this table here, let's take a look at it in a minute. Let's first go down and see if we found a significant relationship. Now the Pearson chi-square value here, the significance value is 0.032. So this is below 0.05. Which means we do find indeed a significant relationship between variable age and the variable spending on craft beer. So we have here our crosstab table that allows us to look what that relationship more or less looks like. So we can see here, for example, let's take a look. We now have the column percentages, which means we are going to have to read this table vertically because the numbers add up, the percentages add up to 100% in the columns. So we see that of all these 100% of people, so of all the people who are 21 to 23, we see that the majority doesn't spend too much actually on craft beer. We see most people here in the $5 or less, $6 to $10 a week, and $11 to $20, and then a couple more right here. Of the age group 24 to 26, we see that it has shifted a little bit. Here actually people spend a little bit more on craft beer. We see that the majority, the highest percentage of specifically that age group sits somewhere at $6 to $10 in their weekly spending on craft beer. So we see that this has moved up a little bit, although here in the higher categories of spending, there's no more people detected. For the 27 to 30-year-olds, we see a quite similar pattern. It's a little more divided. We see that the majority is in the $11 to $20 per week and also in the $5 or less. Nothing really crazy out of the ordinary here. We do see that there's 15.8% of these 27 to 30-year-olds that spend a good amount, spend actually $61 to $80 on craft beer per week, and so on. So you can read the table vertically this time. You see, let's take a look here actually at the oldest age category. We see that the majority of the oldest people actually spends quite a bit, spends $31 to $40 per week on craft beer. So these are interesting findings. So you could actually just, I wouldn't say subjectively, but somehow still like, it's not black or white. You just see the percentages here, and you can deduct information on what the relationship looks like by looking at this crosstab table. Okay, so that was it. The summary for Crosstab Chi2 is that you only perform this if you want to look at an association between two nominal or ordinal variables. First thing you're going to do is look at your Pearson chi-square. Second thing you want to do is look at the pattern of the relationship or the type of relationship, really deduct information from those percentages in the table. Okay, that was it.